Have you ever chased a dream so far that you lost sight of who you were doing it for? In this video, I'll take you to Denmark, where I had to choose between my dream career and the people I love most. It's not just a story about English or work or family. It's about what happens when success costs too much, and how slowing down, speaking honestly, and listening deeply helped me find balance again.
The breaking point. It was 6:47 a.m. in Copenhagen. The sun hadn't fully risen yet, and the streets were painted in that soft Danish gray, calm, quiet, almost too perfect. I was sitting by the window holding my coffee, staring at two emails that could change my life. One was an offer, a dream job at an international firm. The other was a message from my wife. Our son asked when you're coming home. That was the morning I realized. Sometimes success doesn't feel like winning. It feels like breaking. You see, I came to Denmark chasing a dream of becoming fluent in English, of building an international career, of proving that I could make it. I thought if I worked harder, learned faster, and spoke better, happiness would follow. But what I didn't see coming was how lonely that chase could be. In Denmark, everything moves slower. The people, the buses, even time itself seems to take a breath. But inside my head, everything was loud. Deadlines, meetings, English words I still couldn't pronounce right. I kept thinking, if I can just push a little harder, it'll all be worth it. The truth? It wasn't, because every yes I said to my work was a silent no to my family. Every time I stayed late, I missed another bedtime story. Every time I practiced my English speeches, I lost a piece of my mother tongue. One evening, I looked at myself in the mirror, eyes tired, voice flat, and asked, when did I stop sounding like me? That question stayed with me for days. People talk about the cost of success, but they never show you the receipt, the missed birthdays, the quiet dinners, the guilt that sticks to your skin like Danish winter rain. That morning, staring at those two emails, I finally understood what my mentor once said. A choice isn't about what you gain. It's about what you're willing to lose. And right there, in that little apartment with the smell of cold coffee and unfinished dreams, I realized I was losing too much. So I closed my laptop. I didn't make a decision that day, at least, not the one everyone expected. I just stood up, opened the window, and let the Danish wind hit my face. For the first time in a long time, I stopped chasing and started listening. Not to my boss, not to the world, but to that quiet voice I'd been ignoring. That was my breaking point, and strangely, the beginning of something better. A dream built in silence. When I first arrived in Denmark, everything felt like a whisper. The language, the people, even the air seemed softer than anywhere I'd been. I rented a small room near Aarhus University, where the walls were so thin I could hear my neighbor playing jazz guitar every night. It was beautiful, and lonely. My dream was simple: to master English, to become someone who could stand in any international meeting and speak with confidence. I thought that fluency was the key to respect, and maybe finally to belonging. So I built my dream in silence. I studied every morning before sunrise. I listened to podcasts while biking through the rain. I practiced pronunciation with my reflection because no one else was around to correct me. I thought silence was discipline, but really it was fear of being heard, fear of being wrong, fear of being less than native. The Danes around me spoke English so effortlessly. Their accents were light, confident, musical. Meanwhile, I was stuck on the little things. V. R. Every mistake felt like a crack in my self-worth. So I smiled more and talked less. Funny thing about silence, it makes you sound strong to others but small to yourself. Sometimes I'd walk by the harbor after class. The wind there has a voice of its own. Cold, honest, impossible to ignore. I used to think, maybe if I just listen long enough, I'll learn how to sound like them. But what I learned instead was something deeper. Language isn't just sound, it's connection. And connection can't grow in silence. The more I isolated myself to perfect my English, the worse I got at communicating. Not just in another language but in my own. I forgot how to express things that didn't fit in grammar books. Homesickness, doubt, love, fatigue. There's a Danish saying, stilt taler hodere end ord. It means silence speaks louder than words. But in my case, silence wasn't speaking. It was suffocating. One night, after a long day of work and study, I called home. My wife picked up. The first thing she said wasn't, "How are you?" but, "Why does your voice sound so far away?" That question hit harder than any grammar test. Because she wasn't talking about distance. She was talking about disconnection. That's when I realized I was learning to speak English but forgetting how to speak as myself. And that quiet erosion was the real cost of my dream. The voice I ignored. It started as a whisper. That small, annoying voice in my head saying, "You're tired." I brushed it off like I always did. After all, tiredness was just weakness, right? I had come too far to rest. Too far to feel. But here's the thing about ignoring yourself. Your body starts to shout when your mind refuses to listen. I remember sitting in a Danish cafe one winter afternoon. Rain tapping softly on the window, espresso cooling untouched, when suddenly my hands started trembling. Not from caffeine. From exhaustion. That I laughed it off, told myself, you just need more focus. So I downloaded another English audiobook, took notes, repeated sentences like a robot. But deep down, that voice was getting louder. Why are you doing this? You see, I thought mastering English would fix everything. The fear of being misunderstood, the insecurity of being foreign. But the more fluent I became, the emptier it felt. Words came out perfectly, but they didn't sound like me anymore. It was as if I'd traded authenticity for articulation. The Danes have a word, hygge. It means cozy, but it's more than that. It's about comfort and simplicity, presence in small things. I saw it everywhere. Families biking home together, friends talking without checking their phones, laughter echoing in candlelight. Meanwhile, I was sitting alone, memorizing idioms I'd never use in real life. That's when I realized I was chasing fluency, not communication. Perfection, not connection. One night, while working late, I heard my boss say, "You're one of our best English speakers." I smiled, but inside something cracked. Because if I was one of the best speakers, why did I still feel invisible? That voice in my head, the one I'd silenced for years, finally spoke clearly. You don't need to sound native. You just need to sound human. It hit me hard. Fluency had become my armor. Every polished sentence, every accent-perfect word, was just another layer protecting me from feeling small. But armor is heavy, and when you wear it too long, you forget what skin feels like. That day I walked out of the cafe without finishing my notes. I went to the park, sat under a tree, and just breathed. For the first time, I practiced listening not to words but to silence, wind, heartbeat, regret. And in that quiet moment, I realized something both terrifying and freeing. I'd been learning to speak English all this time, but maybe, just maybe, it was time to learn to listen to me. When family feels far away, distance isn't just measured in kilometers. Sometimes, it's counted in missed calls, unanswered messages, and birthdays you only see through a screen. When I first left for Denmark, I told my family, "It's just for a few years." But years have a strange way of multiplying when you're chasing success. At first, it felt fine. I told myself I was doing it for them, to build a better future, to make them proud. But slowly, for them turned into away from them. The calls home got shorter. The smiles on video chat looked more polite than warm. And my son, he started growing up without my voice in the background. I remember one Sunday morning. The kind where Danish light sneaks through the curtains and everything feels too calm. Called home. My wife picked up, holding the phone near our boy. He waved at the camera shyly and asked, "Daddy, are you coming home this weekend?" My throat closed. Because how do you explain time zones to a child who only understands love and hugs? After the call, I sat there, staring at my phone screen. His face had already disappeared, but the question stayed. It echoed in my mind louder than any English phrase I'd practiced that day. That's when I realized something cruel but true. The better I got at communicating at work, the worse I got at communicating with the people I loved. I could give a perfect English presentation, but I couldn't find the right words to say, "I miss you." It's ironic, isn't it? I came here to learn a language that connects people. And somehow, I ended up learning what disconnection really feels like. The Danish winter can be harsh, not because of the cold, but because of the silence. You walk home under a sky that turns dark at 3 p.m., pass by windows glowing with families having dinner together, and realize you're the only one outside. That loneliness, it teaches you things. It strips away pride, excuses, ambition, until all that's left is honesty. And honesty said this: you can't trade love for language, you can't replace presence with achievement. That night I made a decision, small but real. Every evening, no matter how late, I would call home and just listen. No English goals, no grammar drills, no pretending to be fine. Just me, my voice, and theirs. It wasn't perfect. Sometimes the calls were quiet, awkward, full of pauses. But they were ours. And maybe that's what learning a language is truly about, not speaking better but understanding deeper. The night I almost gave up. It was one of those Danish nights when rain doesn't fall. It lingers. The streets of Copenhagen glowed wet under the lamplight, and the air felt heavy with everything unsaid. I was walking home after another long shift, umbrella in one hand, exhaustion in the other. My head was full of English words I didn't want to hear anymore. That night I was done. Done with chasing perfection. Done with pretending I wasn't falling apart. I got home, dropped my bag and sat on the floor. The silence felt too loud, like the world was waiting for me to admit something I didn't want to say. I can't do this anymore. See, people think giving up happens in one big dramatic moment like a movie scene. But in real life it's quieter. It's the moment you stop caring whether you wake up early to study. It's when you start skipping practice sessions, telling yourself you'll do it tomorrow. It's when you lose faith not in English but in yourself. That night I opened my notebook, the one full of vocabulary lists, grammar notes, and motivational quotes. I flipped through the pages and realized none of it mattered if I couldn't even say how I felt and why English had become perfect for business meetings, and completely useless for heartbreak, though I did something I hadn't done in months. I spoke out loud, not to practice, not to perform, but to release. I said, "I'm tired." Then I said it again, louder, and again until the words broke and turned into tears. And here's the strange thing. Speaking that truth out loud in English, no less, didn't make me weaker. It made me real that in that moment, I realized something that changed everything about the way I learn, work, and live. Language isn't about perfection. It's about presence. It's not about sounding flawless. It's about being felt. When I finally caught my breath, I remembered something my Danish colleague once told me. We don't learn languages to be better. We learn them to be together. It hit me like the rain against the window, soft, constant, undeniable. Maybe what I needed wasn't another grammar lesson. Maybe what I needed was to listen to my exhaustion, to my family's voices, to the silence I'd been filling with noise. So that night, I made myself a quiet promise. I would keep learning, but not to impress anyone. That I would speak slowly, truthfully, even when my voice trembled, because fluency means nothing if your heart can't follow. That was the night I almost gave up, but instead I finally began. The Danish Way of Balance. If you've ever lived in Denmark, you'll know this. Danes have mastered something the rest of us keep chasing: balance. They work hard, yes. But at 4 p.m. they close their laptops, hop on their bikes, and go home. No guilt. No, I'll just finish one more email. Just life. At first I thought it was laziness. How could people be so calm when there's still work to do? But over time I realized it's not laziness. It's wisdom. One day I stayed late at the office again. The lights were dim, the coffee was gone cold, and I was rewriting a report to make my English sound more native. My Danish colleague Freyja passed by and laughed. "You know," she said, "you sound more human when you stop trying so hard." I froze. Then she added, "Here we don't chase perfection. We chase peace." That sentence lingered in Denmark. People believe in something called arbeidsglæde, the joy of work. It doesn't mean loving every second of your job. It means working with purpose, then stepping away to live the rest of your life fully. They trust that rest doesn't ruin productivity, it fuels it. And that philosophy changed the way I learned English too. Instead of cramming new words, I began using them in small human ways, chatting with baristas, joking with colleagues, asking strangers for directions. I stopped worrying about accent and started focusing on connection. Suddenly, learning felt lighter. Conversations stopped feeling like exams. I began to enjoy the rhythm of English, the pauses, the laughter, the imperfection. There's actually science behind it. Studies show that when you learn in a relaxed, emotionally safe state, your brain absorbs language faster and remembers longer. It's called the effective filter hypothesis. Basically, when you stop judging yourself, your mind finally opens up. That's exactly what happened. I realized the Danes were teaching me more than vocabulary. They were teaching me how to live. They didn't separate language from life. They lived their learning. Every conversation, every pause, every cozy hygge moment was a lesson in communication. And that's when I understood. Fluency isn't just about speaking well. It's about living well. If you can balance ambition with presence, if you can speak honestly without fear, then you're already fluent, not just in English but in being human. That night, I left the office before sunset for the first time in months. I biked home slowly, the wind cool against my face. For once, I didn't feel guilty for stopping. I felt alive. Redefining success. You know that moment when you realize everything you've been chasing might not be what you truly wanted? That was me, standing on a quiet bridge in Aarhus, watching my reflection ripple in the water, realizing I'd been running toward a version of success that wasn't mine and my old definition. Success meant working harder, speaking flawlessly, earning more, impressing people who barely knew my name. But Denmark changed that. Here, people don't talk about success the way we do. They talk about contentment, about knowing when to stop, about balance, not burnout. One morning I tried something new. I left my phone at home, walked to a cafe, and ordered in English slowly and perfectly, but without caring about mistakes. The barista smiled, corrected me gently, and we laughed. That moment, that tiny human exchange, felt better than any compliment I'd ever received on my professional English. I realized something profound that day. Fluency isn't when people understand your words. It's when they understand you. So I began changing how I learned. No more 10-hour grammar marathons. No more comparing myself to native speakers. I started listening to English songs while cooking, reading short stories before bed, even talking to myself in the mirror, not to sound perfect but to sound honest. And something magical happened. The more I relaxed, the faster I improved. Because when you learn with joy, your brain learns without resistance. Science agrees dopamine, the feel-good chemical, helps your brain form new connections faster. Every time you learn something in a positive mood, you're literally wiring happiness into your skill. The Danes don't say study hard. They say make it hyggelig, make it cozy, make it enjoyable. So I started doing that with English. I made it hyggelig. I would record my voice, listen, smile at my own mistakes. I'd tell stories, not to impress, but to remember why I started learning in the first place. To share my life, my thoughts, my feelings. For years, I thought my English journey was about ambition. But it turned out to be about acceptance. About learning to speak not just to the world, but to myself kindly. And that's when I understood success isn't a destination. It's a feeling, the calm you get when your heart finally speaks the same language as your voice. From that day, I stopped chasing success. I started living it. The promise I keep. These days, my mornings in Denmark look different. The alarm still rings early, the sky still glows pale gray. But I don't rush anymore. I sit by the window with a cup of black coffee and listen. Not to podcasts or business calls, but to the quiet rhythm of life outside. Children laughing on bikes. The wind brushing through the trees. My own breath. That I still work. I still learn. I still speak English every day. But now I speak it slowly, the way I live now, the way I wish I had all along. There was a time I thought fluency meant never pausing. Now I know fluency is the courage to pause and still feel safe in silence. Sometimes people ask me, "How did you get so good at English?" And I smile, because they're asking the wrong question, that it's not about getting good. It's about getting real. That I tell them this. I stopped trying to sound perfect. I started trying to sound like myself. And maybe that's the truest lesson Denmark ever taught me. That the goal isn't to master the language, but to let the language master you into being more human, more present, more kind. My son is older now. He speaks English better than I did at his age. Sometimes when we talk he laughs and corrects my pronunciation, and I let him. Because now it's not about pride. It's about connection. Every laugh, every word, every "Dad, you said it wrong again" is proof that I chose right. That I didn't choose between career and family. That I chose balance. That I chose life. And here's my promise, the one I keep every day. To speak with honesty, to listen with love, to keep learning. Not to escape my past, but to grow into my present. Because fluency isn't just in your mouth, it's in your heart, your choices, your silence. So if you're watching this, wondering whether to keep going, remember this. You don't have to chase everything at once. You just have to choose what truly matters and give it your full quiet attention. That's the real mastery in English, in work, in love, in life.